Hey everyone, Sam here. Thanks for joining me. I hope you're having a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. In this video, I'm going to show you how to paint some winter willow trees in this mountain landscape that's inspired by southern New Zealand. And I know it might seem a bit odd painting a wintry scene when it's summer in the northern hemisphere, but down here in New Zealand it's the start of winter, so I thought it would be appropriate. Just before I start the video, I'd like to quickly tell you about my Patreon channel. Each month I upload a full-length painting tutorial video plus reference photos and lesson notes and other content as well, all for just $5 a month, and I'll put the link in the description box below. So without further ado, we'll get straight into the video and I hope you enjoy it. I'm painting on a 10" by 12" medium weave oil primed linen panel, and this is made by a company called Seascape in the USA. Beautiful for painting on, also great for plein air paintings as well, but I paint on a lot of these, especially in the studio. So I'm sketching out my composition here with burnt sienna mixed with liquid original. And as I'm using oil paint, the liquid's going to speed up the drying time and also improve the flow of the paint. Now the colours I'm using include titanium white, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow, cadmium red light, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue and phthalo green, and it's a more simplified palette and I believe you can paint any landscapes with these colours. The brand of paint I'm using is Blue Ridge Oil Colours. These are beautiful to paint with, an artist quality oil, and if you'd like to get some, I've put a link in the description box below. So now my composition is sketched out, the first thing I think about is where are all the dark values and shadows in the scene that I'm painting, and value refers to how light or dark a subject is. Now you will have heard me say this in a lot of my videos about painting your dark values first, and I just find it an easier thing to do. It's something I learnt through plein air painting because it's advantageous to paint your darks first because the light moves often quite quickly or the weather can change, and I found that this was an easier way of creating a tonal dynamic in my paintings, not only outdoors on plein air but in the studio as well. So it means that we can create the atmospheric perspective where the distant landforms look like they're in the distance. So here I'm painting the distant mountain, and the darks there are going to be a lot lighter than the darks in the foreground. As you can see here, the darks in the riverbank, and that's because we'll find our darkest darks and our lightest lights in the foreground, but as landforms recede, darks are not as dark and lights are not as light, and that's because the value scale of which it's represented narrows. So we'll see the value scale here. Here we've got white at one end and black at the other, and in the middle we've got a load of greys that are mid-tones. So the shadows in the riverbank here I created with ultramarine blue and a little yellow ochre, and I used the same colours for the vegetation in the midground on that hill there, but with a little bit of titanium white in the mix so that the value is a bit lighter. Now there's obviously a lot going on in this painting, but for this short video I'm just going to be mainly focusing on painting the willow trees and how we can create those winter colours. But I just wanted to show you the bones of the painting as it starts, especially establishing the dark values first. And now that I've done that, I'm working back in the painting, establishing the sky and then working forwards. Now working on the willow trees here, I'm using a mix of burnt sienna with ultramarine blue and a lot of titanium white, and also a little bit of alizarin crimson. The burnt sienna is the main colour in the mix, and burnt sienna being a dark orange, it's opposite to blue in the colour wheel, so this is how we can create this kind of pale, low chroma, brownish colour that I'm using for these bare willow trees. Now of course these trees have lost all their leaves, but rather than painting every single individual branch and twig, I just treat it as a large mass, and I'm also using quite large brushes at this stage for the size of the painting anyway, and I'm using a number 5 flat brush. The brushes I use are made by Rosemary & Co, and I've put a link to their website in the description box below. Can definitely recommend their brushes and I've been using them for years. So now also these darker areas within the tree canopies are the same colours but with less titanium white, so the value is a bit darker. The thing to keep in mind when painting these types of deciduous trees is The colour's low in chroma and also quite light in value, so they look better when there's a darker background behind. So in this case, the mid-ground mountain here has got quite a lot of dark coloured vegetation, so it's going to stand out. So that's something to think about if you're painting these types of wintry trees. At this stage of the painting, I was just treating them as masses and just getting the basic shapes in, and I actually came back to them at the end of the blocking stage, which is where I start the whole painting. And at this stage I'm not worrying about detail either. So I carried on painting the foreground, painting the grass, and then painting the water. Now grass is a much lighter value colour compared with trees in general, although these deciduous trees, some of them look much lighter in value in winter, as is the case with these willow trees. The water is a mix of ultramarine blue with a little yellow ochre, some phthalo green and some titanium white. And then these other more still areas of the water are reflecting the vegetation in general. So for this I used a mix of yellow ochre with some burnt sienna, some ultramarine blue and titanium white. And these colour mixes are actually great for creating kind of low chroma, organic looking vegetation and reflections. So I used these in the background hill as well. And I've created a variety of greens in the background hill also. Now once I'd established the main colours and values and just worked out how the painting's going to continue, I then went back and re-established some of these dark values, so restating the darks. So here I'm just building up a bit more detail into these mid-ground forests. These trees are mainly a mixture of native New Zealand beech trees, and there's also some conifers in there and some deciduous trees as well. And then painting the shadows in the grass. And shadows go a long way in landscape paintings. They really help to communicate a three-dimensional effect. And especially if you're new to painting landscapes, generally painting landscapes that have a lot of shadows in them can help you to understand values. At this point I was just painting the suggestion of a few main stems and branches within these willow trees, using the same colours I was using before, but with a lot less titanium white, so the value is darker. All up I spent about 3 sessions on this painting, and you can see I'm painting the sky again here because I'd left the painting to dry for a few days, so the blocking in stage was complete. And then generally what I was doing was I was starting back in the painting, the sky and the mountains, and then just working forward. So I spent quite a lot of time building up the detail in the mid-ground vegetation here, keeping in mind my values, my colours, and also those shadows as well, which is going to help create the three-dimensional form and effect in the painting. Then working my way forward, painting the grass. And as I said a moment ago, grass is one of the more lighter values to be found in the landscape, and when I paint grass I prefer to mix my own greens, so basically mixing blue and yellow. So the colours I've used, I start off with a little bit of yellow ochre, some cadmium yellow and some ultramarine blue, then I adjust the value with titanium white, and then I mix something that contains red, so that could either be a cadmium red or an alizarin crimson, and that just knocks the green back because red is opposite to green on the colour wheel. I can also increase the saturation by mixing in some phthalo green as well. I start adding more details to the willow tree, and what I'm doing is I'm just feathering the tops of the canopy to make it look a bit more wispy, also adding some lighter value colour in there as well, using the same colours I was using in the blocking stage. Now another thing to think about with painting in general is colour harmony, so that means the painting will look pleasing to the viewer, and it's because we're using common colours throughout the painting. So the colours I've used in the willow trees, for example, the ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, titanium white and alizarin crimson, I also used in the mountains. It's been used in the sky as well. The sky was just a mix of ultramarine blue and titanium white. I've used the ultramarine blue in all the shadows, and it's also in the grass as well, so it just ties all these colours together, and it means all the zones in the painting have something in common with each other. This is one of the reasons why I prefer to use a more limited palette as well, and it also helps you to improve your understanding of mixing colour. So as you can see here at this point, I was adding more finer details to these willow trees, so using a small number 0 round brush and painting the suggestion of a network of stems and branches. Certainly willow trees grow quickly and produce a lot of branches and epicormic growth, so that's something I'm trying to communicate with these trees here. So I'm painting my shadow areas here, much darker at the base of the tree, also adding some more fine twigs and branches to these other smaller willow trees as well. At this point in the painting I'd added more details to the water and I'd allowed the whole thing to dry again because it was ready to add the final details that's going to bring the whole thing to life. So here just a few more details on these ripples in the water, and then just painting a few sparkles just to communicate the bright winter sunshine reflecting and shimmering off the river. I always think painting sparkles is a nice effect when you're painting water and it helps to make it look alive. I'm using a number 0 synthetic round brush and just painting dots. And I finished up the painting by adding a few highlights on some of these main stems and branches in the willow trees, using the same colours as before but with much lighter value colour. So actually it was just burnt sienna with some ultramarine blue and titanium white. You can see the mole fork I'm using on the right side of the painting. That's just to help keep my arm and my hand steady. Very good if you want to paint fine detail in your paintings. Now this is just a short video and I've only just really skimmed the surface here, but I actually have a full-length version of this video which you can access by subscribing to my Patreon channel, and I'll show you the whole process of how I created this painting from start to finish, including how to mix all the colours which I demonstrate on my palette. So I'll put a link in the description box below. For the last part of these willow trees here, I'll just use an old brush just to feather the ends, and as I said, just like before, making the canopy look a bit more wispy with a network of fine twigs and branches. And then as I finish up my paintings, it was literally just adding a few more details here and there, but it was at this point the painting was complete. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful and that you enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Also hit the bell notification to be notified of when I upload a new video. And also feel free to leave me a comment in the comments section below. Have you painted any wintry scenes or winter trees, or are there any questions you'd like to ask? Put them in the comments section below. Now just before I end the video, I'd like to quickly tell you about my Patreon channel. Each month I upload a full-length painting tutorial video plus lesson notes, reference photos, and there's other content on there as well. Also, there's over 2 years worth of videos on there as well that you'll have instant access to, and it's all for just $5 a month, and I'll put the link in the description box below. Now I also sell videos from my website at samuelerp.com, and I've got a load of free content on there as well. And lastly, you can get my free ebook on Introduction to Oil Painting by subscribing to my email list. And again, I've put the link in the description box below. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to paint some winter landscapes and winter trees. Thanks for watching, hope you're having a beautiful day, and I shall see you in the next video.